Bills fall in preseason game number 1 to the Chicago Bears, 33-6. Vic Carucci, Lindsey Moppert. I'm John Scott. It was not good. It was not good. We'll just be straightforward here. In preseason games, listen, the preseason disclaimer, we understand what we're watching here. But Lindsey, even understanding it's preseason football, Sean McDermott, not mincing words, it was not up to the standard that he felt it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tone, I guess you would call it, between Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, they were on kind of completely two different sides, if I may say so myself. Josh Allen saying, yeah, we talked about, we have a standard. Do I feel like we really met that standard? I don't really know. I don't think so. Sean McDermott coming in, as you said, not mincing any words, saying, this is our standard preseason game number 1 or not. I apologize in advance for my hair this whole time. But, just talking about this is our standard, period, end of sentence.
I always apologize for my hair. But that said, I do think, look, Sean McDermott's job is to set that standard, to let the team know exactly what is expected. He didn't see it, and he was right to call it out. I also understand Josh Allen basically saying, hey, look, it wasn't a game plan. We've got a lot more plays that we could utilize and could have done things to defeat what they were doing, and maybe in his mind the Bears were a little more intense, but that can't be an accepted way of going about your business. You've got to be more focused. You can't be as sloppy as they were, and that was where my real problem was. The pre-snap penalties, Sean estimated there were 8 of them among the 11 penalties they had as a team, and then generally the physical beating that they were taking at both lines of scrimmage. That's unacceptable.
Right, because at the point of attack, it doesn't matter what the X's and O's. You hear it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. And when it comes to preseason football, it's mano-a-mano. And if you're not really game planning, then truly that is just about will, that is about toughness, that is about the point of attack. And that is always where Sean McDermott and even Brandon Beane and the organization will always go to. And it was bad. It wasn't there. But the question, obviously, with preseason football is always, how much do you take into account preseason, and how much is the siren going off a little bit here of, all right, there's still time, but how concerning is this, do you think, out the gate?
Again, I'm kind of with you on that, considering how much time the starters actually did get in there. And again, we saw some flashes first game, as you talked about a little bit when we were still in Pittsburgh, saying how obviously these guys aren't necessarily ready to go and play a regular season game, right? Like, this is still part of the process. I don't think you need to be necessarily super concerned. Again, the big picture is that no one was injured after today, right? You just want everyone to play safe. But, there's areas of concern, of course. I just don't think overall anyone needs to be freaking out.
No, you're spot on. Training camp is still in progress. Just because they're not in Pittsburgh any longer, they're still in camp, and that camp mode, that camp mentality exists. So look at the video of this game. They should concentrate on all the things that weren't right, but more importantly, the focus thing needs to come in better. And I think, I'm not sure that 2 more preseason games is going to necessarily impact that in the most positive of ways. But I think the job of the coaching staff is to take pieces out of this game. Keep in mind, too, defensively, you had a new guy calling the defensive signals, Bobby Babich. I don't know that it was a disaster for him, but in terms of the way they were marching, the Bears were marching up and down the field, from an execution standpoint, that wasn't pretty. I also think he was limited into what he was going to call. And Joe Brady on the offensive side, he, too, looked at his play sheet. There wasn't much there. So that does matter, but again, take it seriously. If your head coach is talking about a standard, don't walk out of the locker room saying, yeah, okay, coach, we get you. But I think that might have been what the attitude was.
One of the things that I always look for is the pecking order of reps as you move along in the preseason game. Bill's using a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, early out the gate with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. It was Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. Then when they subbed out a tight end, it was Marquez Valdez-Scantling who was the next one in. That was the early series. We started to see Curtis Samuel get in the mix as well. Interesting to see MBS, who we haven't seen maybe get as many first-team reps as camp has gone along, the third guy in there. What about from the new wide receiving group in all-encompassing here? You could throw in Matt Collins, Curtis Samuel, all of them. did you see in short, small sample sizes, especially with Josh Allen?
In terms of new guys, I think Curtis Samuel was maybe the guy to keep an eye out for today. He definitely flashed a couple times. I do want to mention Khalil Shakir. He's a guy who, when you hear Josh talk about him, when you see him out on the field, I think he's really going to be one of Josh's receivers that is going to continue to be a reliable target for him throughout the season.
Yeah, look, the passing game, I mean, I definitely was paying attention to that. But first, the lack of a run game, the fact that there was no movement at the line of scrimmage, hardly at all, that was a problem. And that, I think, contributed to the inability of the passing game to form any sort of consistency. I think if they are running, there are more plays for them to run in both aspects. But the fact that they were so limited in running the football, it could open nothing up in the passing game. And when it came to the passes that we saw, the success, whatever that they had, it was really like a slip screen that you saw Curtis Samuel catch, and then Mitch Trubisky throwing the football to Keon Coleman, getting a play there. I know the fans loved seeing that. The ball didn't really come his way much. I know there was an attempt in the end zone as well that was also a combination of a misfire and tight coverage. So look, the receivers got to do a better job in general of getting open. I'm not saying that based on one game. I'm saying that based on what I saw through camp.
I'm just going to round things out with Keon Coleman. Interesting the way he handled his post-game remarks in the locker room, seemingly downplaying things. And so much of Keon Coleman ever since he came to the team was anything but downplaying anything. His personality has been so amazingly over the top and fun. And he was very businesslike after this game, which is an interesting development with him. I even saw it a little bit after the practice here inside the stadium about a week ago. It seems like he's just trying to maybe take it down a notch and be more football-centric, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You'd like to maybe find a happy medium. Let's go to the defensive side of things. Pass rush, defensive line. You mentioned the Ed Oliver scare. He's fine. You know who's someone who popped to me? Javon Solomon. And in a group of edge rushers and getting after the quarterback that I certainly have a lot of questions with, that could be an X factor, the rookie later round pick here, as someone who could flash early.
Someone has to emerge, John, you're absolutely right about that, in the pass rush realm. And it's going to be a guy perhaps like that who shows enough flashes to warrant a spot on the roster. He would have to, of course, be a big contributor on special teams. But in terms of rushing the passer, his persistence was something that stood out to me. But the overall lack of constant pressure, consistent pressure, was a problem. I also had some issues with tackling form. I saw a lot of high tackling when it came to especially the run plays by the Bears or after the post-catch yards. Not the low wrap-up. It was really just trying to go high, and usually when you try to go high, you're going to miss people and add yards to the game.
What did you see from the defense here?
Once again, as always, I think Rasul Douglas is making himself known out there. He slowed down the momentum of the game down there in the end zone when, Caleb Williams is bringing it down, making it look pretty easy. I think, once again, he's going to be a guy this season. They're going to be glad they brought him back, glad he's on the roster, and he's just a playmaker, plain and simple.
One little bow to put on this. I want to say, cool to see Joe Andreessen, a local kid from Lancaster, getting on the field, playing in front of his hometown crowd here. And on the flip side, Stephen Carlson is a Jamestown kid who nearly made an unbelievable catch right back here on the sidelines. Sean McDermott, shockingly, 2 for 2 in challenges. Maybe that's the story we should have wrote after the game.
One more thing. On the positive side, and Sean, I think this was one of the first things he said in the post-game news conference. Tyler Bass hitting field goals on both ends of the field, won that 49-yarder. The wind, it's just still whipping, not making that too easy. And I think it was just an important little confidence boost for the guy who missed that 47-yarder in the playoff loss to Kansas City.
It was noteworthy. Sean said when talking about Bass and even the punt and kick returners, it was beautiful out here with the sun, but you can see it with Lindsey's bangs. The wind is wild. I mean, this is typical Orchard Park, inside the stadium type elements, so a good introduction to some of these guys. Your thoughts moving forward to preseason game number 2, what do you think you need to see on the field from this team?
I think going off of sort of what Vic, you were saying, the focus, the standard, I think above all else, yes, you're still in this mode of training camp. I think moving forward, you really want to see them put the focus on and have a little bit more of Sean McDermott than kind of the attitude that Josh Allen brought to the podium today and saying, yeah, this is the standard, plain and simple preseason game number 2. I don't care if it's week 1 or the preseason. This is what we need to see.
Josh, of course, can get away with saying that and probably much more. But to piggyback off of what you just said, Lindsay, I would add that there is a thing in football that when you break training camp, the mentality gets a little foggy. It's the, we're done with, being in their case in the remote setting. Most teams don't have that. That, I think, is somewhat of the built-in mental excuse they have. Guess what? For preseason game number 2 with Pittsburgh, no more excuses. You got to be more focused.
And Pittsburgh was the team in the preseason a year ago that really did the exact same thing that we saw this afternoon. They pushed him around, they punched him in the mouth, and that's what led Sean McDermott to say, no. The starters are getting back out there for the final preseason game. Bill's also doing a joint practice with the Steelers in Pittsburgh a few days before the preseason game, which that second one is next Saturday at 7 p.m. With Vic Carucci, Lindsay Moppert, who's laughing and laughing, I'm John Scott for Channel 2 Sports.